Greetings, I'm Dike Rostant. Welcome back to the TTT News. We are going in depth on a School Social Work Month with a social work specialist at the Student Services Support Division, Ms. Natalie Robinson-Arnold. Welcome, Ms. Robinson-Arnold. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us.
I'm fine, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is ours, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. But start me off now. What is School Social Work Month?
Well, it's Social Work Month. Is an international. It's recognized internationally by all social workers. Trinidad and Tobago has its own end in celebrating and recognizing the efforts that social workers contribute to society.
Just carry me through it now in terms of the when does it start, when does it go through, and what is the need in terms of like highlighting these sorts of things?
Okay, so it varies. It varies across countries, but for us here in Trinidad, it starts on the 1st of March and ends at the last day, which is the 1st of March. It is used really to recognize the efforts and the hard work and the contribution that social workers play into the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. As you know, there are various social workers working in governmental agencies throughout Trinidad and Tobago as the Ministry of Education, Social Development, the Office of the Prime Minister, to name a few, and there are several NGOs that have social workers as well.
And do you think we have enough social workers? And I ask that question, is there a formula, like there should be an ideal mix of social workers to a body, an amount of people? What does that look like to you?
Well, I will look at it in terms of school social work and its practice. It's best one social worker for 250 students. If it's an at-risk population, is 1 to 50.
And what are some of
So
those criteria? What are some of those criteria that say, okay, well, yes, these check all the boxes, so we can say this area, this group, this community is at risk. So let us try to increase the amount of social workers for the cohort.
So our schools is a microcosm of society. So just the challenges that are faced in society. So we may have violence in society. There are socioeconomic factors. Those are some of the factors that impacts on social work delivery in the school system. So when we have students that have in schools where there's a large number of bullying, there are a lot of school violence, there's socioeconomic factors, um, poor academic performance sometimes leads to some of these issues. It will mean that there will be need for psychosocial intervention into our students' lives. And social workers, we are the first responders within the school system to support our students.
And looking at that need for psychosocial support, we recently spoke with the Minister of Education, and she was saying that one of the things that has been noticed in terms of that return to school is an increase in some activities such as bullying. And is that something that you see from on your end? And if so, what are some of those things that are being used to build capacity to address, to mitigate these situations?
Okay. One of the most pivotal role that school social workers play is the connection between the school, the home, and the community. So it is critical that we work with all three systems so that we can meet the needs. The school itself will understand some of the implications with bullying and some of the behaviors that are exhibited so that the school will be able to best cope with these children who will manifest this behavior at the student level, at the micro level, we will do counseling, we'll do small group sessions so that we will give them the skill set so that they will be able to manage the behaviors that will lead to bullying. And the students who are bullied, they are best able to cope. We also help parents to support their children in these roles and help and develop their development and how to handle situations as bullying.
So is it that you're not limited saying, okay, well, I'm a school social worker, so I'm not able to engage with the parents as much, or does that not factor into the equation at all?
No, that's one of our core functions. School social work operates with 12 major core functions, and that is care and protection of our students, crisis intervention, our individual and group counseling, family intervention. We advocate on behalf of our students. We give teacher the skill sets through their teacher information session so that they can be able to cope with our students and they will be able to do early referrals. We have our parenting and education. We conduct home visits as well as we have a lot of community engagement. We have heavy consultation along with all our stakeholders within the school, the home, and the community as we do networking and external referrals for our students who will require further specialized intervention and support.
And out of those 12 pillars, how have those pillars been affected during the pandemic? Because in terms of trying to keep away, trying to engage virtually, remotely, how has the work that you do been affected by some of these movements that we've had to do to remain a little safer?
Well, immediately we had to convert into a virtual sphere. So we had to connect with our students via online platforms and getting our students and parents to manage those online platforms in which our IT department was quick and ready to convert the entire ministry into that online intervention through academic as well as our social support with our students. Some because social work is heavy on care and protection of our students, we still had to learn how to mitigate amidst the COVID-19 in meeting the needs of our students. So we had to develop different protocols to still attend to our home visits so that we can really and truly meet those needs.
And definitely, this is something that we want to continue speaking about in terms of the work that you're doing, the work of the division, and we get back a little more into Social Work Month. And we do that with Social Work Specialist, Student Services Division, or Support Division, Miss Natalie Robinson-Arnold. Stay with us. We return with more. Welcome back. We're speaking with Social Work Specialist of the Student Services Support Division, Ms. Natalie Robinson-Arnold. And Ms. Arnold, what are some of the activities that have been taking place for the month, be it awareness or building capacity? What are some of those things that have been taking place?
So we have been building social work capacity. So we are developing an e-resource for our social workers so that they can continue to retool themselves and relearn because models and different forms of intervention and assessment happens and changes continuously. So we have to be always, on top of our game in the intervention with the intervention of our students. We also look to acknowledge the self-care and how important self-care is for social workers during the month and recognize the efforts that they have put in to their own work, their own meeting the needs of our families, the communities, and their children. And it can be tiresome, it can be really laborious at times. And we recognize those efforts of our officers. This year, we also want to recognize our students who have really benefited from the system and contributed and see their success stories. So we want to do more success stories this year so that we can highlight that for social work month.
And I like the fact you speak about building capacity because, and I'll speak from my experience and then to explain it. One of the ways that I hear is by reading lips. So trying to read lips with people wearing masks, I realized, but wait, no, I didn't know, I had hearing problems. So in terms of being able to engage with persons remotely, is there any drop-off? Because there's some things, when you're there with somebody, you can feel the energy, you can look at the space or the environment that you're in, and that gives you cues as well, and also gives you some ideas how to interact, how to engage with that person. What are some of those things that capacity was needed to be built in this time and during this month?
Okay. social work uses a myriad of skills, observational skills, listening skills, clarification skills. Those skills we had to learn to adjust, especially our observation, where we had students and sometimes families with their cameras off, and we were unable to meet those observational cues that are so critical to our assessments so that we can really have strong interventions for our students. Those were some of the observation was mainly the challenge that we met while transforming in a virtual sphere.
And looking at the coordination role of the Student Services Support Division, what are some of those things that you're looking forward to? Because right now we are anticipating the return physically to school for all our school children. So what are some of those things that are high on the agenda in terms of these are the things that we need to get done now?
All right. So high on the agenda for us is getting our children back into school as comfortable as can be. So we want to roll out programs very, very early in grief and loss, mental health issues that they will experience. We'll have a group of students, 2-year group that will have never been in school. That's our infants one and infants two. We have our secondary already there. So building if that friendship capacity, building relationship, negotiating skills, a lot of those things are needed and heavy on our agenda at this time so that our students can come back to a sense of normalcy and they can focus on their academic performance.
And what about that sense of normalcy when the person is regretting being in school physically because they were very happy to be at home
Comfortable.
and be at class via whatever platforms, but now they're in school and they're feeling, like you said, that sense of grief and loss for that.
Right. So student support services operate with four major units: the social work unit, the guidance and counseling unit, our DIU unit, which house our psychologists, behavioral specialists, social and school psychologists, as well as our special education. Guide our guidance and counseling is ready for that transformation and that adjustment into school life. So they are doing their whole classroom thoroughly with all our students on how well they can adjust and adapt into back into the school system and how to mitigate those challenges that they will have encountered and get used to while away from the school environment itself. The school social workers will look at a more targeted approach in terms and look at the social issues that will impact the mental health issues together with our DIU unit, the grief and loss that our children will have faced, and all those things will impede on learning and giving them the coping skills so that they can best continue that education process.
And we've had these some of these conversations already, but take us through the referral process, thank you, in terms of saying, okay, well, I think this child can be helped or may need a little some work with that child in a manner that is a little outside the classroom, outside the ambit of a teacher. Take us through that process, thank you, in terms of saying, okay, well, I think this child needs help. Let us see how we can get help to that person.
So we love early intervention. So that's why we do a lot of teacher information session. We do a lot of parenting so they can help us to recognize very early when their children are facing challenges. Some of the things that we look at is child abuse, mental health challenges, our teen parenting, chronic absenteeism, substance abuse, grief and loss, violence, to name a few. When you are, we try to give the skill set so that they can become early identifiers. And when this happens and you recognize that something is wrong, you can refer you through our referral process. We have a referral form that is done within the school system. The principals, teachers can refer, parents can refer. We have a hotline. We also they can call into the Ministry of Education through and we receive a call in referral system. There's also a walk-in referral system. When we refer referrals for our students, they go through a process in student support services known as the multidisciplinary team, which house our guidance officers, social workers, our psychologists, and special ed, and we determine based on the reasons for the referrals and who best needs to meet the need of those children. It could be one of those disciplines, or four of those disciplines, or all three. We work collaboratively together to see what intervention is best needed. What happens? They go through an assessment first. Every child that is referred, 100% of our children are assessed. And that will determine the intervention or treatment plan for our children. Intervention will begin, and then there will be continued follow-up until we see that child will have reached their goal.
And so is there any infrastructure in place to build capacity among peer networks? Because I think sometimes we may just be out of practice in terms of like, okay, when these are some of the things you're looking forward to or looking out for, especially if you haven't necessarily had the chance to develop some of those skills. And personally, I am very careful about who I utter 3 words to. How are you, or how you're going? Because this round, there's so much that can just unearth and take the cap off if you ask that person something. So is there something that you're dealing with for peer groupings?
Well, for us, we do a lot of, like I said, the e-resources that to build our social work capacities, even within the other units and the disciplines within SSSD among peers. We have strong alliance with our universities because we do we engage our practicum students. Our students that are becoming social workers are trained with us as well in the Ministry of Education. We house a few of them, and the universities are always welcoming to support us in retraining and retooling our officers, giving them the skill set so that they could maximize the intervention that is required and is necessary for our children.
All right, and I also want to ask about younger individuals, so peer mediation possibly. I know that there's a mediation division which may be outside of the student services support division, but at the same time, and answer that with a nice smile, and this will also help form closing comments.
Inside and outside, because we work collaboratively together. So when we see that there's a need for peer mediation, we reach out to our colleagues in mediation at community development, and the mediation division comes in and do peer counseling, as well as they reach out to our principals as well. So peer mediation is infused in our school system as well, in that collaborative effort to meet the true need of all our students.
And I want to thank you so much for helping remove some of the veil from in front of my eyes. Social work specialist, Miss Natalie Robinson-Arnold, operating out of the Student Services Support Division. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, I'm Dike Rostant. This has been In Depth. Thank you for joining us.